As the US reaffirms India's right to defend itself in the wake of the Pahalgam terror attack, does this growing strategic convergence between Washington and New Delhi reflect a deeper shift in regional power dynamics? And how might it influence India's posture towards cross border terrorism and its neighbors? Look, first of all, we don't need any any certificate from from the US or anybody else that we have the right to our self defense. All right. First of all, we don't need that. But yeah, very nice of the US to say that. What does this mean? It means nothing. It's possible that privately they may be pressurizing India not to take any action, not to take any military action. In public, they'll say nice things. Or maybe in private also, they may be telling India to go ahead if you want to. So we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. So diplomacy has two faces. One is the public face, one is the private face. In public, you say nice things. In private, it's a whole different story. You can imagine what happens in private, in diplomacy. It's a very different world in private. Um, so yeah, the US has made these public statements. Various US officials have said that they stand with India. Various world leaders from various parts of the world have said that. Even the foreign minister of Iran said that. I don't know if the Chinese have said anything, but and so on. So there's a lot of support for India. The US has expressed support. Uh, does this mean that there's a growing convergence between India and the US? It looks like there is growing convergence between India and the US, and there are external reasons for that. Uh, China is an issue. So, look, some of you may say that China has been doing its best to engineer some kind of rapprochement with India. The past year or so, they have been saying nice things, and there has been some kind of de-escalation on the India-Tibet undemarcated border, all of that. So yeah, there's been these events the past year or so, and there have been outreaches by China to other Indians also in various domains, privately, publicly, wherever. The Chinese have explored various alternatives and options with India, uh, and tried to see whether there can be rapprochement. And we are obviously amenable to a rapprochement. We don't want tensions on the border, but it's true that the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra is starting now. It's almost about to start apparently, and lots of confidence building measures are going on. But the fact is that there are still tensions on the India-Tibet border. There is still kind of a standoff situation to some extent, not as much as in 2020 for sure, but you know, satellite imagery tells you that the Chinese are building more and more infrastructure on their side of the India-Tibet border. So they are actually strengthening their infrastructure and their military presence and posture on the border. So it's kind of, you know, saying one thing, doing the other. Um, so that, what does it tell us? It tells us that we have to be forever vigilant when it comes to China. And as long as China holds Tibet, it's going to be a constant problem for us, especially as long as China is 3 4 times more powerful than us as it is today. So when you have that situation, it is natural that you will seek external friends. Let's say there are no friends in geopolitics, but let's call the term friends. So which external friends can we look at, or partners can we look at? Uh, the natural partner historically has been Russia, but Russia is in a peculiar situation right now where it's very very heavily dependent on China. So Russia, and even if it were not dependent on China, it Russia was never going to be in a position to come to India in India's support if there's an India China war. So Russia is out of the question. So who else is left? There's no other bigger power left except for the US. And the US has a very, very, very strong interest in the region, especially the fact that they want to stop China's rise, and you know, they want to contain China. So it makes sense for us to work with them. Now, we don't want to contain China. We don't have anything against China's rise. We just don't want to be in a position where China can, attack us militarily. So we have to be careful, we as in India, not to become pawns, not to become a big pawn on a geopolitical chessboard. We need to have our own autonomy, our own strategic autonomy, and we're gonna ensure that happens. But we're gonna work with the US to whatever extent is possible, wherever we have convergence of interests. So that's what's happening. And the US also needs India in a variety of ways. They are decoupling from China very rapidly. Their trade with China has gone down to nearly zero, more or less. And they need another place where they can have things manufactured. So the only nation that can replace something of the size of China is something of the size of India. So India is increasingly important. And so it makes sense for them, for the US, uh, to support India in various ways. So there is this growing, increasing strategic convergence between Washington and New Delhi, and it does reflect this deeper shifting of international global power dynamics, not regional but global power dynamics. And how might this influence India's posture towards cross-border terrorism and its neighbors? Look, we have no issue with any neighbor. As long as they leave us alone, we leave them alone, and we want to be friends with everybody. And when it comes to certain neighbors, we have the most. I mean, historically, we have had some issues, but when it comes to neighbors like Sri Lanka, when it comes to neighbors like Nepal, we have essentially no issues. It's only neighbors like Pakistan and increasingly East Pakistan of late, and Maldives at times, that we've had issues. Um, so as long as the neighbors don't create any trouble, we we have always left them alone, right? Um, More or less, more or less. There have been issues in the past at times when certain Indian governments have taken very stupid, um, very counterproductive actions. But okay, we'll not discuss that here because it's not relevant. So our posture towards cross-border terrorism is gonna get harder and harder now. We're gonna be less tolerant of cross-border terrorism. Uh, if another big incident happens now, like what happened in Pahalgam, I can assure you it's the end of the world for Pakistan. So we are going to be extremely intolerant now of cross-border terrorism, and it's high time we adopt that posture